the news you shared to me this morning, right here in our own circle?
Yes. So first of all, with the veteran suicide aspect,
hotline also, once you tell them that you, whoever it is, either someone you know is attempting or has attempted, or that you yourself are in that mindset to want to attempt or maybe to have already, then wouldn't they still end up in the end calling the 911 to send somebody to get you to a hospital? So are you really adding another step?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, because I'm trying to speak to this in terms of, since we're talking to it, let's talk about, what are some tips, for helping as much as we can. So
Right. I just
so
thought
the
that the
idea,
idea of seeking help on behalf of somebody that you know that may have or may be in the risk of attempting is part way of helping them. See what I mean?
correct. So yeah, I definitely want to be a part of encouraging people that if they think 911 can help with anything, yeah, I don't think anybody should be in the business of discouraging people from calling 911 unless it is, people just, wanting things that are non-emergent or not to this level of severity. But yeah, in terms of potential suicide ideation and just really, because that's a situation you don't want to leave without there being a plan for, you got to think about every minute, from that point forward, like, how are we going to make sure that there is support for the person across all minutes? Because if you do some things and you're not entirely, making the needed connection, all of a sudden there could be something unfortunate that transpires, and then you have that regret. So yeah, have a 911 call center to have those professionals involved. But yeah, I guess I'm just advocating that we don't replace the benefit of the National Suicide Hotline, um, with 911 alone.
So what
So it's
is the
911
benefit
first,
of
so that the
suicide hotline?
location,
So what is the benefit of
again,
suicide
the benefit
hotline?
of the
That's why that's
National
better.
Suicide Hot. Yeah, again, the benefit of the National Suicide Hotline is that when you call and they say their name, like if I was there, I'd say, "Hi, I'm Kurt. You've reached the National Suicide Hotline. How can we help you?" It's like you're right away there with this feeling like, okay, you're in suicide ideation, and you're talking to somebody who's like right there ready to relieve the situation, and that obviously many other people are in the situation, which is true, but it immediately creates that mindset. Like if you as a friend say, Bill, I would like to, if you don't mind, I would like to, for my help, I feel more comfortable, I want to help you, and I can help you with nothing else, but I'm just saying that I'm asking if it's okay for me if I get 911 on the line and I can tell them, hey, I'm here with my friend. My friend is having some thoughts that, and then that can, and then to, I'm looking at it as a tip to say it may be something to ask the 911 operator if they're able to connect with the call suicide hotline, because if you have a 911 operator on with the National Suicide Hotline, and then they're helping you and you're helping the friend, now your friend has a little bit of a team there, and you have a specialist from the hotline, you have emergency response. If getting EMTs there or whatever is something that'd be helpful, or a police officer or whatever, I mean, you just know who's the one that might be able to help, or critical response team. Yeah, 911 on there can help do all that kind of stuff. And sometimes the National Suicide Hotline, if you reach them first, sometimes they're doing what I'm just saying. They might be in their call center and say, is it okay if can you stay on the line for me? I'd like to connect your local emergency response center. And then they might be going the other way, queuing up all that so that so you can do it in either order. But I do encourage both, and there's a little bit of judgment with the actual situation. I mean, it's a little bit of practice. You don't do stuff because you can all the time, but that's just the idea is have that in mind, that if that situation arises and you're trying to sincerely help, to think of both of those things. You bring up the good side about 911, definitely go that way. But I encourage people not to forget about the National Suicide Hotline as well.
So speaking of the National Suicide Hotline and not forgetting about it, this is something I know I'm wondering, and some may also. Kurt, are you still with us? Emily? He was having some issues because did you notice how he kept breaking up? Like maybe with his Wi-Fi or something? So maybe I can see if you can answer this question I was about to ask Kurt. Does the National Suicide Hotline help with other mental health stuff? Like, let's say somebody's depressed, but they haven't reached the point of suicide. That's a Kurt question. Okay, I guess, did Kurt have another event at 3 or something? Okay. So based on the conversation Kurt and I were having, did you have any thoughts or input? Our whole idea of people when they say themselves needing to take action to get help or talk to a friend, or maybe someone who is that friend and trying to be able to help the person out. So is that your advice for the friend or for the person? So maybe encouraging people who may also have depression or other conditions, like let's say PTSD and it's the flight mode or other low moods, to actually speak up for themselves, calling suicide hotline or 911, and maybe even texting or calling their different providers like a psychiatrist or therapist. Initiating the response when you notice your mood is low enough that you're in danger of that thought or process, or attempting to reach out to a close friend or relative that they're close enough with that they can basically share anything without fear of judgment. I heard you experienced something similar. What would you advise people based on what you experienced? No, but I heard about a friend. Didn't something happen to a friend recently? So based on that, so you're a friend of this person that did it, and share with people how that impacts you, like the toll it took on you of losing the best friend, or what other emotions to help people who have it to have suicidal thoughts to understand why they should not obey the temptation. What about the toll it took? What was the impact that took on you as a best friend of someone? Like, did you feel a loss? Did you feel like what did you experience? That's why those who may be attempting should not, at least in the perspective of their friends and family. So in other words, you're saying your friend or acquaintance, you called them, was basically one of those that puts on the outside that they're perfectly normal, but deep inside there's obviously something going on. So maybe that's also a tip for listeners. But then that could also be a tip for listeners of if they are that person that struggles, then maybe they need to at least stay honest and upfront with how they're doing with their providers, like a doctor, therapist, and their at least closest connections, friends, family, at least their closest, and be honest about what's going on. Because that friend or family, neighbor, in my case, couldn't have done anything if you didn't tell them. So that's basically the need to communicate as well. And I know Kurt at one point said, whenever you're going through these, if you think you are one of these people that struggle with suicide, or at least tempting or thoughts of it, tell someone. Don't keep it to yourself. Tell someone you trust. I could quote Kurt saying that before. Well, if someone told if someone told their close friend or relative, then the liability would be on the friend or relative to actually call for some kind of help based on the being aware that the whoever is struggling. But often when we're the ones that are struggling, like you're saying, they sometimes keep it private to themselves. And when they do that, the friends or family can't really, quote, support them in terms of helping them know they need to get help and getting them to the, clinic or hospital or wherever, if that person doesn't make the support system aware, at least a few people in it, they're their closest. Are you okay? Did that make you feel guilty or like you're partly responsible or anything as being a friend of the person that had the struggle? Mm-hmm. Well, this is pretty interesting because January typically is the higher suicide month. And the timing of that person you knew kind of seems to follow the trend of what statistics show in mental health. The winter months, the darkest months, like me, like gloomy or literal dark in places like Alaska that have 6 months of darkness and then 6 months of daylight. But that whatever kind of darkness, January and February tend to be the worst, and January is the one with the highest suicide rate nationally. So that kind of follows the trend of what, whichever uh, national group found via research, that follows the pattern they found, or at least if they communicate. But then I've heard that a lot of that is because it's tends to be the more gloomy and dark months, and that even though not everybody has the kind of depression I do that's getting depressed because of lack of sun, what they call seasonally affected depression, a lot of people don't have that, but they have some other kind of like clinical depression or something else. And somehow, even though theirs doesn't correlate with the lack of sun, the still so many people with depression still are impacted more heavily by the months that tend to be the darkest and cloudiest, without it being the kind I have that's related to the lack of sun. Which kind of shows to me like there is some kind of small amount of need of exposure to sun by everybody and not just those in my condition. It may need, a larger amount of sun to stay balanced. It's like often, even when we go to somewhere like Miami, we think of it as being a happy place, but those tend to be the sunniest places too. Like how like Florida is Sunshine State. But they're also very far south where it's a lot hotter and people can be outdoors more. Not to say it's not too hot for some stuff and you be pouring sweat and want to go in, but you can get quite a dose of sun down there compared to up north in say an hour. Like a lot of people associate Hawaii as being, it has a like a positive um, meaning to it. A lot of people think vacation, happiness, you know, joy, but it's actually more expensive to live in than New York and California because they cannot mail anything since they are an island somewhere around halfway between California and Asia. So flight, air is the only way to deliver anything there or to get anything produced there, like say coconuts, from their island to other places like the mainland as they call us, that's to 48 states in the bigger part of the US. It's they have to pay air fees for everything to be shipped in and out. And so anyways, to say that because that their cost of living is a lot higher than California's, so also there's the other end that they have a lot more homeless people and so forth, to have a lot more people that are going without, and more so without than the mainland does. But still, we don't look at that perspective. We instead see, oh well, it's a sunny day. It's that's another place. There tends to be a lot more sun, and it's got a positive meaning because of the sun association. I think it's a great place versus like my accountant. He's been working with me since maybe 2011 or 2012, but he's been my CPA for years. And he told me actually the main island, the one that's the biggest, only has 30 miles in diameter. All the way across from one side to the other side is only 30 miles. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I go 30 miles one way, not all the way across, but just one way. I'm barely in Houston. Go from Brookshire to Katy, then to Houston. That forget about all the rest of Houston and all the other places in the other sides of town. That's like Katy and Brookshire would be all there is to the island. The two suburbs right here near me. Without the whole quote mainland, which is the big metro area of Houston itself. And so to me, that sounds like kind of trap. You don't have very many places you can go. And neither would you necessarily have much option if you opened a business to have a place where you could rent the space for your business, a retail or an office or something. So that to me sounds more restricted. But so many people think of Hawaii and they got this all wonderful, relaxing vacation, perfect honeymoon, and all these other kind of meanings to it, right? And so I think that's because of the sun. Because otherwise, we look at the real economic situation, and it's not really as great as people make it out to be. Remember when, what was her name? The author, Marianne. Remember when she was there? And we were having some of these video meetings. And I remember like one thing she said was about listening to the seagulls, or was it watching them or something? And I'm thinking to myself, well, we can do that right here in Houston without having to be in that restricted, only 30-mile area of land. Because we got seagulls right here because we're on the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico. So some of that stuff like her that she was talking about was so great about being there. I'm like, okay, I don't have to be there to do that or to enjoy that. That can be in my own backyard right here in the mainland. Mm-hmm. Is it common up there in Wisconsin near the Great Lakes? You haven't been to the Great Lakes to know? Have you not been to the Great Lakes to know? Hmm. Oh yeah, I just saw it. It was, go ahead. Oh yeah, that's for sure. I think mental health goes too low on the priority list because until the pandemic, there wasn't really much attention being given to mental health and research related to them compared to since the pandemic when it became the big mental health crisis among other crises. And hopefully that will bring some kind of positive change. You know, if it hasn't yet, more research, more treatments, more broad understanding of the general public and not just simply people that are somehow linked to somebody with mental health issues. And maybe even help those who have it and may not know they have it because, like, I know when I first started getting depression, uh, and they falsely diagnosed me as bipolar because, you know, PTSD wasn't even around back then. But when I was originally diagnosed, I remember I thought I was demon possessed. I didn't even understand myself that it's something actually wrong with my brain. In this case, the chemicals, not the actual tissue itself. But I remembered myself before I turned 14 and what I was like 14 and after. And so I just thought I had a demon possess me. And that's a little bit more appropriate for the Christ talk, but still that it was that even though I was a person with a mental illness, I didn't understand it. You see what I mean? I personally couldn't tell that something was different about me besides thinking that I had evil thoughts and stuff like that because of the fight mode of wanting to retaliate and other things that come with the fight mode and in the flight mode and other things that are associated with it. You know, since who I am is the only person I ever have been, and that's really all of us, right? Then I didn't know why suddenly I started having these kind of things, you know? And a lot of us try to have ways to explain it. But in reality, it's where, at least at the beginning, often we ourselves, as people with mental illnesses, don't understand that something's actually really wrong with us. Or they may not know what kind of help to get to figure out what that something is. Like you said, they may know something's odd and different, but they may not necessarily know that's medical or what kind, or to see a doctor for it or a therapist, or even to possibly know that there are doctors and therapists like psychiatrists and so forth that are there to treat it. You know, but with a lot of times I've heard from my therapist and psychiatrists that there's a lot more people who need help with their mental health than are willing to reach out and get the help they need. My psychiatrist told me at one point that she thought that there's a lot of people who don't understand that something's even wrong with them because of what you said. They may know something's different, but they don't know necessarily that something is wrong with them. And I can only imagine, as what I was saying, I went through when I was 14 and I first got diagnosed and first started developing the symptoms of my PTSD. I can only imagine someone who's never been normal in that sense. If they've always had a mental health illness, how are they to know that it's not normal? Kind of like I remember when I was in school, K to 12, even preschool, the whole grown up thing. I had a seizure my whole life, epilepsy. So I thought it was just something that everybody has and everybody deals with. And I didn't understand why I was being made fun of for it. You know, what was so different about me that other people don't go through? Because I never knew life without it. So, like, I'm sure people have similar with mental health, right? Well, I think that's with a lot of things, but just, you know, this is our mental health, child's mental health awareness, and that's why I was saying, yeah. But that's probably true that it applies to a lot of other medical, um, you know, whether it's chemical or physical sense of the body and brain that's not right or different or has some kind of malfunction. I mean, like my dad, he's always eaten fried food. He's always eaten all kinds of heavy, greasy food, even if it wasn't really fried meat like to have breading. It was made in a pan where you use butter or something to put fat on it. Like he's always had that kind of diet. And he always told us, like, yeah, I eat healthy. I do my best and I'm always trying to eat healthy. Well, then we went for Thanksgiving and later for my birthday in December. You may remember, Emily, that I wasn't there because I was at my dad's. I wasn't here on the podcast clip at my dad's. And he's eating fast food. His lunch is from some fast food restaurant nearby. His dinner is. He doesn't even eat breakfast. He just drinks coffee. And where on this whole chain of every meal is fast food or he doesn't even eat and he only drinks something, is that defined as a healthy diet? So, like with him, I don't think he understood the nutritional side of healthy diet. So he was always eating unhealthy, claiming to be doing his best. In reality, I think, is that he never really understood, you know, what is a healthy diet? What are all the nutrients that the body needs? And what are the food sources to get those various nutrients, like fiber and greens? And that's why I say, like, you know, how many of us don't necessarily know something's wrong with whatever that is that causes some kind of medical or mental. Maybe we think we're doing the right thing and we just don't really because we're not doctors. We're somebody else in some other kind of field, right? So we don't know that stuff. And if we don't know that our perception is different or is just in the absence, how are we to seek the help and know what kind of help we need or even that we need help? I mean, it's kind of a puzzle, isn't it? Because it's like we go into the world blind and we have to discover the world around us. You know, as kids, it's usually the immediate, like your family in the same household, and then it extends to your extended family. And anyways, it goes from there to where as adults, we would hope to have a broader sense of awareness in general, you know, not limited to a certain arena of life. I mean, yeah, we all have careers of some sort, so we understand certain things better because it's our profession, but still in the general health, a lot of us want to understand maybe why we need to exercise or why we need to eat these certain nutrients or what are these nutrients we need. And maybe we start wondering that when we have weight problems or whatever reason that we think our eating habits need to change, even though like a lot of people may do that seasonally. You know, I'll just go on this diet and then after I lose however much weight, then I'll go back to my regular diet. And what usually happens, regular diet puts the weight back on. So that to say, it's still that we may not necessarily know. We experiment, but we still may not know, but we hope to, through these experiments, to learn and eventually achieve goals of good health and stuff like that as we realize and our senses of the world around us broaden as we get older. Well, we're almost down to 10 minutes. Do you have any announcements for World of Ability or Project Die Hard or anything? Okay, then. I do. Did you get through all of yours? Okay. Um, so Jaw's Coffee Chat podcast, as well as Jen's Books and More, that's a basically store with books and more stuff, that I, Jennifer Whitaker, the author, write, or co-write, and or ghostwrite. We are looking for a social media candidate to help do post things regularly for our social media. We are also looking for a virtual assistant to help with various executive assistant kind of roles between scheduling, contacting people on behalf of our company, and networking and so forth, many other tasks, but just a virtual assistant. And we are also looking for someone with press release background that can release press releases regularly for the publicity and try to get word out about our podcasts and our other events we have, like autograph events. That said, if you're interested in any of these and trade for a percentage of our profits, then please schedule with us on calendly.com/Jen's Books and More. That's CALENDY.com/JENNS Books and More. If you'd like to be on our show to share something about yourself or your product or service or your cause in a nonprofit or whatever else you stand for, please book with us by going to Calendly, CALENDLY.com/Jaws Coffee Chat. That's calendly.com/JAWS Coffee Chat. And that's where you can book with us to reserve a spot to be here on the podcast with us, where we can interview you about whatever is your cause or your business or your product or whatever it is that you have to offer the world, and to bring awareness to you and what you stand for. For those of you who are interested in more about our podcasts or about me as the author, please be sure to visit our website at jensbooksandmore.com. That's JENNS booksandmore.com. That's our website where you'll find our other episodes of our podcast, prior or soon to come, as well as whatever current ones we're doing at the time that you can watch while we're live. But wherever you found us, please check out our website, but please also subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast app or your favorite social media app, wherever you find us. And we appreciate your support, and we look forward to continuing to help and serve every one of you in achieving various improvements in various sides of life, like this show being for the mental health side, awareness or understanding for those with mental illnesses and those who may be associated or friends with someone with them. Emily? pause. I'd like you and viewers and listeners to all know that on January 30th I'll be in surgery. So yes, the show will still be on with Emily, Kurt, and possibly John. But I, the owner, Jennifer Whitaker, will not be on it because I'll be in surgery that day. So I won't be on any of the 3 shows that day. Carry on.